Imagine being only 24 years old and deciding to run for office, and then at only 26 being sworn in. Well, today I have Caroline Fairley joining me. We're going to be talking about her first month in the job and all kinds of things, so let's get started. Welcome back, everyone, to the Sweet Tea series. My name is Ariana Guajardo. Today I am joined by, I just found this out, the Honorable Representative Caroline Fairley. Welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Is it crazy getting used to like the new title and stuff when people are talking to you?
It is, but I'll be honest, you might be the first to call me the Honorable, so I feel pretty.
Wow.
I feel
and
pretty
we caught it
special.
on camera.
You caught
This
it
is a
on
special
camera.
moment. You can look back on this now. And
Oh my goodness, it will
future.
be a highlight forever.
Okay, so you're coming from Amarillo, hanging out in Austin. So let's start with like what you're sporting today. If we have like someone young on the show.
Okay, love to sport. You know, I got some Ann Taylor pants on.
Okay.
I have some Vejas. These are my go-to sneakers. I'm not really a heels gal. I'll wear them, but I prefer my
So
sneakers.
are you wearing those whenever you're there as well?
I do wear them all the time. I mean,
Okay.
On the house floor, I'm like, I gotta have my heels on.
Yeah.
But if I can.
But this is how you like run around the city, get things done.
This is how I get things done. You know, run around the Capitol. I'm in the extension. I gotta have some good shoes to walk. You know, far lengths. So, yeah, they're my go-to.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. So Caroline, if you don't already know this, she's the youngest Republican in state history, or youngest Republican woman in state history to be in office. And you're also, I think just in general, the first Gen Z legislator that we have in Texas.
I'm the first Gen Z. I didn't realize that till a few weeks ago. I was in some training and they were like, be careful of Gen Z staffers. And everyone looked at me like, oh, you're a member, not a staffer. And anyways.
Wait, what? They're cautioning about the Gen Z staffers?
They're like, you know, in this generation, we have a lot of Gen Z staffers and they tend to want to text, not call. So they're giving like some 101 tips. And I was like, okay.
Was it to help train you guys how to relate to
I think it was. And I was like, I'm a member, but I'm Gen Z. So interesting.
So you're like, text me as well? Or?
Yeah, I was like, everybody, if you could text me, not call, you know, I'd prefer that. But
so how has it been? Has it only been a month since you've been sworn in now? Or
It's
about
been a
that
month,
time?
yeah.
So how has that been trying to, I guess, relate to and work with your colleagues, your fellow legislators now?
fellow legislators. It has been great. It's definitely been a whirlwind. Like, it's a new season because you go from campaigning and trying to get votes and people to support you and fundraising to being in the legislature. And so learning that new environment is just so much different. But it's been good. It's been fast and furious. This summer, I had made it a goal to meet with all of the Republican state reps in Texas. And so I traveled around Texas for about 3 months. And actually, funny or not, when I would meet with people, they would be like, you know, the only time a representative or rep-elect is coming to visit me is to run for speaker. And I was like, oh, no, please not. Let's not start that. Like, I'm definitely would never. Nope, that's not me. But I spent a lot of time meeting with these Republican reps and learned a lot, which prepared me so much for this session because, you know, I have a little bit of the relationships built and kind of know who to ask for questions and understand the process. But yeah, it's been a good Fast and Furious month.
And that's crazy. The last 2 years have been almost like two different jobs for you, right? Like one of them's
Totally.
running for office and then now learning how to be a successful legislator,
Exactly.
which we'll see how that goes
Yeah,
for
yeah,
you.
right. I'm like, people are like, you're doing great, Caroline. I was like, well, I haven't voted on anything yet, so you know, hold me to it. But
So you'll have to keep watching the show later on to see some
you're
progress.
gonna have me back on and be like, Caroline, this vote, explain yourself.
Well, let's start with some of the legislation then. So one of the things that was just striking me when I was like, you know, doing some research, we're both Gen Z, was you have some legislation that really targets young people and is like working towards them. So one of them is House Bill 1481, and that's dealing with cell phone usage in schools. Will you explain a little bit about what that is?
Of course. So essentially the bill as a whole is just trying to prohibit smart devices on school campuses. And the idea and main principle of this is that we want phones to be out during the school period. We want kids coming to school focused on math and science and reading and connecting with their classmates and building relationships with their teachers and working on, you know, their education. And so there's been a lot of, I think about 70% of U.S. parents agree that we shouldn't have phones on cell phone or phones on school campuses, and 12 other states have already passed this. And so I'm looking forward to getting to work. We're finalizing a few of the details in the legislation, but it's been really positively received. And the reality is right now social media it's everywhere. And there's a lot of amazing parts of it that we want to support. But when you're sending your 7th, 8th grader to school, you don't want to have to worry about the cyberbullying or what they're seeing on their phones or pornography. You want to send them to school knowing that they're going to be learning math, science, and reading. I know that I was talking to a representative a couple days ago about this bill. And they brought up, I think, an ISD campus in Texas had implemented this on their campus. And one of the school teachers was like, I haven't heard a cafeteria loud in a long time, because now kids are on their phones. They're forced to talk to each other. And so I think given hopefully that it passes, it will be really helpful to parents and teachers and overall these kids.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the, like, I could just understand like someone who's a student still in school, being in high school, not wanting their phone to be taken away. But I mean, also on the other hand, if they're like, if you are a student, I feel like one of the reasons why you wouldn't want that is because you feel like you're missing out. So like in this case, I guess people wouldn't be missing out anymore,
they would,
right?
Because they'd all be together,
Right.
So yeah, exactly.
Were you like, did people have phones whenever you were in high school too, right? Like, did your campus
totally
allow it?
They did. Because Gen Z, because we grew up
Right.
with social media. Like, we don't know an environment without it. And so that take and perspective of seeing the positive things of phones and social media and AI and the future of technology, and also the negative things. And I think it gives an interesting perspective for the future of our kids and grandkids and Texas kids. Because there's really so many amazing things about the future of technology, but there's also, can be an abuse of it that we want to make sure that we're being mindful of and advocating for in a good way.
Right. And so, like, staying on that, like, technology point, another piece of legislation that stood out to me was House Bill 2551. And tell me a little bit about that, because that has to do with, like, AI and explicit material, right?
Yes. So there was a Senate bill last session. I'm so excited working with the Attorney General's office on this one. And in this bill, it essentially had made it a criminal offense to have deep fake pornographic materials out. But unfortunately, there was a loophole in that bill. It's a wonderful Senate bill that passed. But we want to kind of broaden the definition of deepfake. It had kind of made it where only videos are considered deepfake versus photographs.
Okay. I did. So that was what was missing from
That
it?
was the big. So essentially, it's just broadening the definition. And the idea really is that pornographic and inappropriate materials or deepfakes, they're wrong and they're bad and they should be a criminal defense. And so just doing a little tidy up there. Right now, it's showing that 96% of deepfakes online are pornographic. And then out of that, 99% are targeted females. And so this idea that there's a lot of like pornographic revenge that you see, and where the state can come in to protect those women and those who are victims of this is really, really important, especially coming from a female perspective. It's important.
Right. And I think, so like, obviously, like being online and just knowing how people on the internet are, I'm not surprised that it's happening, but I am surprised at the numbers that you're saying and like how many like deep fakes are being used just for that.
It's shocking.
That percentage really is throwing me off a little bit.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's high.
Yeah. So we're talking about like the technology, all that other kind of stuff. What are some of the surprise issues that are coming up this session that maybe people didn't think about in the past?
Surprise issues are, I would say water is a big one. I didn't necessarily think, I'm from the Panhandle, so that has been something on the campaign people talked about, but it's not really your like social hot sexy topic that people want to talk about. And so I'm really excited that this session, it's going to be, I think, a really huge issue. I mean, the governor has spoken about it, the speaker of the Texas House, he's spoken about it. And so I'm excited to see what happens this session. I know that Senator Perry is leading the issue, and then Representative or Chairman Harris is doing that as well in the House. And so I think we're going to see a lot of change for water that's going to be good.
And then what is your role in it? You're on the committee now for that, right?
I am. We found out today our committee. So I'm on natural resources, which will directly impact water. And I'm so excited to serve with Chairman Harris on that committee and learn a lot. It's really incredible because even though it's not the most popular topic right now, it is becoming where Texans are waking up and realizing this is such an important issue. I mean, we need water and we need usable, drinkable water. And so this isn't going to be fixed in the next 2 years. This is the next 20, 30, 40 years. What do we do as a legislature and as a Senate and as, a body to make sure that we're advocating for Texans to have access to water? I mean, it's so crucial. And the reason I care about it so much is where I represent the Panhandle, it's really, really important. And then the other part is just being a Gen Z young person. I'm hopeful to be here, in the next 20, 30 years and have a seat at the table when it comes to water policy.
I'm so glad that you brought up the water issue. Again, it was something that I hadn't started hearing about until I think it was maybe half a year ago at an event, and I was just hearing a couple of people voice like, "Yeah, I'm glad we're working on all these like other issues like school choice and stuff like that, but why haven't we done anything about water yet?"
Exactly.
And about, I guess it was like 2 weeks ago now, I was in the Rio Grande Valley, so opposite side of Texas from the Panhandle, and one of the biggest things down there is their citrus industry, and that's something that's becoming like threatened because they have the lack of water that they have down there, especially because there's no access to well systems and stuff like that. So it really is, I think, becoming a little bit more in the public eye, especially because it's affecting like from the north part of Texas all the way to like the tip and the southern end.
It's important. It's so important. It's so complicated too. The more I learn about it, I'm blown away by how complex the issue is. Whether it's, we're talking about desalination, conserving water, irrigation, like it's so
and then
complicated.
We get into like a water treaty literally from 1944.
And then you're like way back and you're like,
yeah, so like 80 years ago something happened. And so it's a national thing. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that pans out and like where that's going to lead Texas after this session.
Me too.
So getting into this position where you're even able to be like filing bills, working as a legislator, I think a lot of people would be, I guess a lot of people wouldn't be like thinking of themselves like, oh, I can do that one day. Like I can go in and make those kinds of changes. But I think that the way that you get there, there's a lot of small steps and stuff that you're doing to build yourself up to the person where you are to be in that position. So let's take it back a little bit. What, first of all, motivated you to run?
That's a great question. So simply put, I was born and raised in Amarillo. I worked in Washington, D.C. for Congressman Jackson. I was actually in the Capitol on January 6th, which is a wild story, and moved back to Texas, went to work in healthcare. My predecessor had retired, and really the more I understood the job, and I spent a lot of time thinking and really praying, should I do this, and can I be effective and make a difference? And the more I was convicted about this belief that the next generation of conservatives has to be involved in the process. I mean, whether you're involved at the local level or involved in something like TBPF, like it's so important. And it's important that the next generation of conservatives, because the majority of our generation, especially as women, are liberal. I mean, statistically, Gen Zers, the women are more liberal than the men. And so being able to have this different perspective and also serve in that capacity, I definitely do not know it all. And I have a whole lot to learn. But I think it's important. And when you look at the future of Texas and our country, and, we live in an environment now where sometimes we have, extremes on both sides that don't want to have a seat at the table and talk through issues and have a healthy debate. And so I've enjoyed getting to explore that and also have conversations like that and thankfully have a seat here.
Yeah. Something I have to give liberals a lot of credit for is they're actually willing to get involved. So those are the people that you're seeing, like they're the Karens in a lot of cases, like on the local level, like on the even things like public library boards and stuff like that. There's so many public positions that are available where people can start getting plugged into their local communities and like helping shape them. And most people who are willing to do those stuff are usually liberal leaning.
They are. And I also think in some ways our party, Republican Party, could do a better job of encouraging to step out on that limb. I think sometimes when you get involved in whether it's local or I ran for, Texas seat, like there's kind of this vulnerability and fear of, well, if I don't know it all, or what if I lose or I fail, and this idea that stepping out there is like so bold and courageous, and it is hard, but the reward of learning and building relationships with people is really huge. And so my thing has been, I've spent a lot of time talking with different college students and encouraging people, like, it's okay if you don't know it all. Be willing to listen and be humble enough to say, I'm here to listen and learn and do your research and get to know people and get involved in the process, because you might have more of an impact than you realize you do. And we definitely don't know it all as a younger generation and can glean a lot from older generations, but I love it when young people are getting involved.
Yeah. And I think something that young people and young women especially have oftentimes is imposter syndrome. So whenever I started working here and even at other jobs, I always just felt like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to be like, it's embarrassing that I already don't know how to do this.
Totally.
And then one day I realized, oh, no one for the most part knows all of it, and that's okay, and
Exactly.
they're just willing to ask questions now, and they're not
Exactly.
expecting you to know everything when you're starting stuff.
Totally.
So
And I found that even in the legislature, like I don't know what the average age in the Texas House is, but I'm sure me being 26 has really brought it down. And but I found with all these other members who are senior and have been in the House for a long time, like they are so welcoming and saying, Caroline, I want to help you. I want you to be successful. And even meeting with them, and even certain Democrats, like they've been really helpful in saying, how do we help you be successful? What do we need to know? And I think having that mindset that it's okay to not know it all, and it's okay to ask questions. And frankly, I think people admire more so when if you don't know it all, you say it instead of acting like you do. And so I've been encouraged by that in the legislature.
yeah, but something that's also interesting about how you got here, you weren't just someone who was, working just a regular job and then one day decided, you know what, I'm going to switch everything and become a legislator. You were also plugged into other aspects of your community, other organizations. So one of them is Hope Choice. Will you tell me a little bit about your experience with that?
Yes. Well, I love Hope Choice. It is a nonprofit pregnancy center. And so right now what it does is it's a resource for moms and parents who maybe, mom wants to get an abortion, and it's a clinic where, they do sonograms and help them through that process. It's biblically based, and so they allow their resources as a chance, frankly, to share the gospel, which is it's really incredible. So they don't take any state funding, and they've really reached beyond that. Like they have now a ministry that's for college students at West Texas A&M, and also different classes for parents, and just different resources for family to bring back that nuclear importance. And then, so I was involved in that a lot. I grew up, they have different programs that you could be a part of, and I did some of those. And then in high school and college, I got really involved in I remember, so specifically, we have, in my community, we have a lot of Afghanistan refugees from when the Taliban attacked. And I got really involved with that community and helping them get settled and know where the
And this
grocery
is in
store
Amarillo?
is. It's in Amarillo.
Wow.
Huge community of it, yeah. And so there was a huge need to just, they come here to Amarillo, Texas, and they're from Afghanistan, and they have no clue where the grocery store is. And you walk into, they're in an apartment, and like one apartment I walked in, and they've dug up the bottom of the floor and have this huge like bonfire. It's like you're in a different country. And so I was really involved, and I had this one family that my sisters and I helped, and the mom, she had, I believe, 7 kids already. So about 4 months moved into Amarillo. And I was over there one day, and she said, hey, I'm pregnant with my 8th kid. And she was like, I can't keep it. Like, I'm going to get an abortion. And my sisters and I said, why don't you go visit Hope Choice and at least, talk with them and see what happens, and we'll go from there. And so she went, and they helped her, and she ended up, of course, keeping the baby. And of course, like 9 months later, I came to check in on her and see her newborn. And I was sitting there in her apartment. They fit like 10 people in one apartment. And she looked at me and she's like, Caroline, I'm so happy I kept my baby. And so stories like that really are so impactful, because it provides a really practical place where it is needed, and where moms typically come in and they're vulnerable. And as much as I love that Texas is pro-life. I love that we're pro-family and pro-mom and wanting to support families. And I also love that on the other side, if we can provide resources for these moms who, they can't get an abortion, then what do we do? How do we help them? And so I'm thankful for organizations like Hope Choice that are involved in that and really do impact moms. Because the reality is with abortions, I mean, it's not like getting an ice cream cone and they just want to get an abortion. It's typically they're in vulnerable situations where their boyfriend might break up with them, or they're going to get kicked out of their home or lose their scholarship. And so having those specific resources that advocate for them and make them feel safe and practical and help them get on their feet is so important.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the pro-life movement, which is just
Exactly.
like you'll hear left-wing people say like, oh, they're pro-baby, they're pro-birth, they're not actually pro-life. But I think that the actual pro-life movement challenges that, and like actually has resources like there's one in McAllen, Texas that like the church groups and stuff that I was a part of as a kid, we would always do like volunteer events there, like stocking their, like helping them stock their little boutique that they would have for women could come and shop through. And for me, that was the issue that really motivated me to get involved in the conservative movement at all.
Really?
Yeah.
How old were you?
Whenever I maybe like around fifth grade when we first started doing
Okay.
those little
Oh, I
projects to
love
go
that.
do stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's been the driving force behind, I guess, helping shape me and my political philosophy. And
Exactly.
for you as well, having that experience shapes some of your legislation today, right?
Yes, it does. And even so, I have several dear friends who did get abortions, and I don't think media puts out so much that it's your body, seeing things like your uterus, do with it what you want, and they don't talk about the physical but also mental destruction it does when you get an abortion. I mean, that's Hope Choice. They also do counseling for women that have been through abortions, and so. Yeah, having those practical resources and providing options besides abortion is important.
Right. And I think there's I forgot what the statistic is, like if women even see their child like in the sonogram, that's something that usually changes it.
It is, yeah.
But that kind of just shows us that it's not that women don't want to have their baby, it's that they feel like they're not able to, or they don't have the resources provided.
Exactly.
So what don't you have a piece of legislation that deals with this for the
I
session?
do. I'm working with Senator Paxton on this bill, and essentially what it is right now on the state website. There's resources for moms who are expecting and choosing to keep their child, and it gives state resources in Texas. And what we're doing is pretty much making that into an app. So it's just making it more efficient and easier for expecting moms and families. So it has a really neat like geo map locator that if you pull up on the app, it shows in your town, like if I was in Amarillo or in Dallas, what resources are available, whether it's, clinics, things that are pro-family, counseling, anything like that sort that the state provides. And so talking about what we just said, that typically pro-life people also don't realize, like, we also are pro-mom and family and how to help these people. If they're not going to get an abortion, how does the state come in and help in a way that's not over-regulating, but also, supporting and being pro-family and pro-mom. And anyway, so I'm really excited about that app because it's just going to create another resources for expecting moms to be able to know what's available for them.
Yeah. And I really like what you've been emphasizing with all of this, which is like we're coming back to being pro family. Like being pro Texas is part of
Totally.
like supporting the family unit. So on that point,
Yes.
so by the time this episode airs, I think it'll be a little bit after Valentine's Day.
Okay.
For us, Valentine's Day is tomorrow.
Yes.
And here is something weird that I saw a picture of.
Okay.
So my friend is like, you have to see like what I saw at the store.
What
And it
was
was like, in this section, like where you have greeting cards and stuff like that. Well, one of the subjects that they had is
boy.
like, how sometimes you can have like one that's like for him, for her,
Yes.
like a wife, special occasion. Well, the labels were work wife
Oh my goodness.
and work husband. What do you think about
no,
that?
I can't believe we're talking about this. What is my opinion on work wife, work husband?
Yes.
I definitely disagree with it. I'm like, why are we saying this? Like,
I hate it
especially if
so
you're married.
much.
I'm like, I'm sorry. If
Yeah.
I get married, I'm like, I don't really want someone being a work wife for my husband. It's also just kind of strange. But what's your take on it?
Well, I think that for me, it's well, not only do I agree with that it's is wrong and is weird.
It's weird.
But
I'm like,
so not only is it weird, but I think it also just highlights the distorted view about marriage and family that our generation has. Like the fact that they see like that they see that as like something that's appropriate, or it just
Totally.
feels weird. But I think it just highlights how we haven't seen, or there's a lot of people in Gen Z who haven't seen healthy marriages modeled for them. And then like even things like delaying marriage and pushing that back, that means that you are just in your young 20s hanging out, getting close, like emotionally close to coworkers, and that like challenges dynamics that wouldn't have been there if we had
oh my
better
goodness,
family
do
structures.
not get me started on this topic because I am like, well, it's strange to me. I'm 26, not married, but like, we do live in a generation where people are like, put it off, live free in your 20s, which I think is great. But it's this idea that as if you get married, you're trapped, and not, no, there's so much beauty in getting married. And frankly, it actually requires a lot of selflessness and being for that and sacrifice for your partner. But it makes it like casual to me when you say like work wife or work husband instead of, marriage is a coveted thing that's important. And the ability that we get to, even have kids that are impacting the future of Texas is a blessing. And so I'm pro anything that encourages that. Let's just say that.
But it also, like, it both highlights that people have a distorted view of what it is, but also that they're still craving it. Like, they've created a category for themselves to, like, have a work husband.
They want it, but just not, like, the commitment.
Right.
I don't know, yeah.
Or think about, like, kids and stuff like that. Now people have their fur babies, and they'll treat them, like, above and beyond and, like, do all these things. But, of course, like, a kid would get in their way. So it shows, like, this simultaneous, like, accepting of this new like left-wing ideology that you don't need any of that, and that the like bringing the like this hyper individualism that's also somehow like part of like a bigger commune thing that's not the family. So it distorts that, but then at the same time there's still that longing, so they create supplements for it, whether it be like a work wife or work husband or their fur babies.
I totally agree. Well, and it's also just like, it's wild to me that we now live in a culture where we're all about self-help, self-care. And I love that our generation is way more like, yeah, go get help, go to counseling, like make sure you take care of yourself so that you're able to, you know, be good in your job and your relationship and, you know, with your family. But sometimes it goes so extreme that it's only focused about me and like, I'm the victim. My life is hard. And instead of realizing like life isn't always about us. And frankly, we're a lot happier when we focus our attention not on ourselves, but on serving others. And yeah, I totally agree with that. So
I think a lot of that also comes back to Christianity as well.
Totally.
So there's like, I think that there's a limit to how much you're able to do if you're just self-focused, or like if there isn't a God that's like factoring into anything or something bigger than yourself, because then at the end of the day, it does have to focus back on, well, I'm the end of things. All of these things are like, I'm the end of which you're supposed to service, to serve, versus having the like hierarchy of this is like intended for God or to glorify him. Yeah. And I care about doing these things for other people because that like ultimately lifts it up too.
I love that. Yeah, you're exactly right. It is a perspective of our life isn't about us. It's about glorifying God in our actions. And I think we tend, I would argue, are a lot more happier when we're not focused on ourselves. And it makes sense. Our human innate flesh is like, let me think about myself. And especially in politics, you know, like all politicians, you know, they're looking at their Twitter feed and their social media and how do I look in this photo? And even though the job is serving others, I think that sometimes I have to pray to stay humble and remember that, you know, it's not about me, it's about serving.
Right. And then another area in our culture where we're seeing a little bit of discord, also having to go back to like family relationship stuff. It ends with us drama with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. So you're keeping up with it, right?
Yes, but I will tell you, all right, I do not keep up with any pop culture at all ever, but this, I'm like...
Also, I love that we've like been able to talk about water legislation and then
we're very diverse here. I love it, you know? We're talking about all the things.
Is this true diversity?
This is true.
Is this what DEI is supposed to mean?
You know, I think so. Let's just start a new definition of what that means.
So you've been keeping up with it. What's your take on what's happening?
Okay, well, I feel like I do switch sometimes every other day because I like. Did you watch Candace Owens' like 3-minute clip on it?
So she's released a couple of videos about it. I've seen one of them. I'm not sure if it's the same one you have.
Well, you should watch the other ones because they're so good. So okay, right now I think I'm pro Justin Baldoni. Okay. I first when it came out, I was like, oh, this is so sad. Like Blake Lively's doing the right thing, and then when more like the lawsuit came out, and then reading more about the articles and the smear campaign on him, and then
the extra text messages that she had hidden,
the text messages and the voice memos, or
also I feel like I need to get background for people who are here for policy and then not for this. Okay, there's a movie called It Ends With Us that came out, I guess, end of 2024. It was advertised like with lots of florals and flowers because the main girl works in a floral shop. The movie actually ended up being about domestic violence, so people felt off-put by. There was a weird marketing thing.
I didn't know it was about that.
Oh, really? Before you watched it? So were you surprised?
I was like, oh my heavens. Yeah, it was quite shocking.
Right. So about a woman escaping domestic abuse is basically the story that it's about.
It's meant to be an advocate for women who might be in domestic violent relationships.
Right. Yeah. But the two main stars, Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, ended up having a lot of feuds. So not only were they co-stars, they were, I think, co-producers, and Justin Baldoni was also the director. Yes. And then after the show, or after the movie wrapped and after its premiere, Blake Lively accused him of sexual, I guess not assault, but of harassment, that happened during it. And he's defending himself, being like, no, she's got this whole situation wrong.
Exactly.
Here's the full text messages that she left out that she provided to, I guess, the New York Times is where it was released, right?
I think so.
Or yeah, someone like that.
It's wild. And did you see, like, on the night of the premiere, he was locked in the basement underneath?
Wait, what?
Okay, so I can't believe I know this and you don't. I'm like, maybe I know more about this than I do. So, I guess the day of the premiere, Blake Lively, I'm sure if people know more about this, they're going to say, Caroline, you have this wrong. But Blake Lively didn't want to see him, and so made him go on the basement with his family to watch the premiere. So he couldn't even be seen with her because she was like, I can't be seen with you. And so there's a picture of them, of Baldoni and his family, like in the basement. There's like water bottles. It's clear they're like hidden away. And he was like, this is so sad. The night of my premieres too, I got locked in the basement. You got to go look this up.
That's the weirdest thing I've heard. Strange. Okay, right after the show, I know what I'm researching.
You should fact check me on that, because now I'm like, I think that's right. But I know it is interesting. I think, what side are you on?
Well, I think from the start, I knew that Blake Lively has had, like, I guess I started remembering, like, oh, wait a second. Hadn't, like multiple celebrities say that they hated working with her and that they had bad experiences. So right away, I was like, well, actually, considering that this seems to be, like, a pattern of behavior for her, I'm not surprised that he's saying this. So and also, maybe I just really liked him in Jane the Virgin, the show that he was on before that. But it seemed, I've been on his side throughout the whole thing, especially considering her character before.
Okay.
But also,
you were committed.
I do love her looks at the Met Gala, so it does hurt me.
She's so beautiful, and she's an incredible actor. So it's kind of hate to see it, but
did you watch Gossip Girl growing up?
Not really. I watched maybe, but no, not really.
See, I found it in college during COVID. There's so many like guilty pleasure shows I have now because of COVID. Yeah. So that's where I first did.
They're like, we're stuck at home, have to watch something.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that we got to chit-chat about the cultural stuff going on, some legislation, and I'll definitely be trying to keep up with you to see how everything goes. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Also, we need to do a final cheers.
Okay,
of
cheers
sweet tea.
to sweet tea.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for joining us. I'll see you next time.